Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Travel Tech Podcast. I'm Alex Brooker, and this week I spent some quality time with Jim Hetzel. Now, Jim has spent all of his career in the travel industry, from early corporate travel agent through to the biggest players across the whole industry. He now works for TWAI, and we spend some quality time talking about what does distribution actually mean. It's something that we've covered or danced around the edges of in a few episodes so far this year. But I really wanted to understand, what does it actually mean? What's the NDC? What's the GDS? And what does the future hold with all of the new developments with AI and AI agents? This is brought to you by Airside Labs. That's airsidelabs.com. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and send me as much feedback as you like, hopefully constructive and positive feedback. Thank you everybody for your supportive messages so far this year for the new podcast. And also let me know if you think there are particular leaders and innovators that I should have on. Now, I hope you enjoy the conversation, and let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome to the Travel Tech Podcast. It's great to have Jim Hetzel join me for this week's episode. Hey Jim, thanks for coming on.
Hey Alex, it's great to be here.
Yeah, brilliant. I've been looking forward to this discussion in particular because the topic of distribution, in particular airline distribution, has come up a few times on some previous episodes where we've been talking about the impact of AI, how do things really work, but what we haven't covered is really where the story began originally. What are the main players involved? How do things really work? Where did it come from? What's the GDS? What's NDC? What's direct? So I was wondering, I think for the benefit of our listeners and viewers, because you are embedded deep, this is your day job and your passion, and you've been in the industry a long, long time. I was wondering if perhaps we could start the conversation with that. Like, what is distribution? What does it mean?
Yeah. Well, it's actually a good place to start. I mean, here I go. I'll go way back in time, but I promise I'll move us quickly through it. So let's say, 100 years ago, for example, travel agents selling things like steamboat tickets or rail tickets had to go supplier by supplier. There was no shared marketplace. There was no electronic commerce. It was fragmented, slow, unscalable. And then zip up 50, 60 years from there, and all of a sudden you have computers and the GDS and an electronic marketplace that really became kind of a buffer between agents and airlines. And suddenly everybody could breathe a little easier. The airline, a travel seller could go to one place, see all the airlines, see all the rail providers, see all the hotels, and they could book. And suppliers didn't have to deal with these one-off travel buyers coming to them constantly. It really changed the things. But now the world, you fast forward and there are new complications. There's this legacy GDS world, limited messages, expensive distribution.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got organizations like IATA coming in with things like new standards like NDC, that some people perceive, if you use NDC, it'll make you like the Amazon of airline distribution. But NDC is just a messaging standard. It's not a retailing platform. And for airlines to become truly true retailers of travel, they're going to have to make huge investments in CRM, personalization, even big changes to their revenue systems. But needless to say, those are long topics that we could talk for hours on. But I think for us, we're at a stage now where AI is coming in, and I think AI has a tremendous ability to kind of bridge the new fragmentation that exists in the industry. So I mentioned the GDS electronic marketplace built on old standards. We have new standards, which are completely incompatible with the old standards. We have new standards which are completely incompatible with themselves. Even NDC has gone through many iterations, and it's not backwards compatible through any of them. Uh, so what I think's really happening now with AI, AI has the ability to kind of normalize all of those standards, sit on top of the legacy, sit on top of the new standards,
Okay.
provide an experience that's more consumer friendly. And I think that is a really fantastic role that for AI to take. But is it perfect? No, no, it isn't.
Mm.
But it I don't know. It could alleviate. It could actually. The importance of having standards kind of goes away if you've got AI kind of being that smart interpreter in the middle. Yeah, and I think that's actually that's really the core of where I think a lot of people get kind of confused. So um, the GDS was a great intermediary. It was I think I described it as kind of a buffer. It was an electronic marketplace. And I think the key word in that is an intermediary. So you've got an entity in the middle between the consumer, the traveler, and the actual seller, the airline. And everybody's always trying to, and that has a cost. There's a cost of having that intermediary in the middle. And I think for decades and decades and decades, airlines have said, like, I don't want that cost. I want to own my customer. I don't want the intermediary to own my customer. I want to be able to go direct, and I want people to come directly to me. And that started, you know, the supplier started to not like that middleman, that intermediary. They wanted those people to come directly to them. Kind of going, kind of that circa flashback to 100 years ago when you'd have travel agents, walking from office to, to supplier office
Yeah.
to ticketing office to ticketing office. They kind of feel like, well, if you go direct, then I have control of it. I don't have to pay an intermediary, and I'll be able to differentiate my product better by going direct. And to try to get there, airlines look to organizations like IATA to kind of come up with a new standard so that people could more easily go to Delta or British Airways or Iberia or whatever airline directly, because now there's going to be a common language, and they could sell directly, and they could control the pricing better, they could control the product better. And I think that's the dream that I think everyone aspired to. The reality of that is a little bit different. I think the reality is the standard, the NDC is a messaging standard. It did try to normalize how an airline could talk to another system, to an agency, for example, or to a consumer directly. But there are almost 900 airlines in the world, and it's really hard to get 900 people to agree on a standard, or 900 people to implement a standard, and this from your airline operations experience. Standards change over time. They evolve over time.
Mm.
People start on one version. People start on the next version. People start on the third version, and there's still people who haven't caught up. The early adopters haven't moved up, and that's kind of the issue with NDC. I mean, I think it started at version 17. I think we're at version 23, and each version of NDC, of each version of that standard, introduced new features, but was never backwards compatible with the previous version.
Okay.
If you can imagine.
Right.
So if it costs, if it, so if this is this from my world, what I see is I see an airline spend millions of dollars to be an early adopter, implement, say V1, customize it, tweak it to do all the things it wants it to do. Then there's a V2, a V3, a V4 that's not backwards compatible with them. And now they have to make a decision like, do I continue to stay on this V1 and do all these proprietary enhancements to it? Or do I spend millions of dollars to go to the next version up, or to the current version? And that gets really expensive. But I think, that's why I think the GDS has been around for so long and it's so mature. It's been difficult for agencies and travelers to go anywhere else because it's tested. It's kind of like, I'm going to go on the airline operation side of the world for you, just to kind of tie it in there. Airline operations is about safety. It's about predictability. It's about having all those bugs, all the servicing figured out, all of those things are all figured out and standardized. So in the airline operations world, in the air traffic control world, I don't see them making jumps to new standards easily. I think it's very
Not
methodical.
easily.
It's very thought out. You don't make a change for the sake of making a change. You make a change because there's a safety benefit to it. There's an efficiency expert to it, and you have to make sure it clears all these hurdles. Distribution doesn't quite have that. I've got airlines are a mixed bag of distribution. I don't. This might be a bad term to use, or some airlines might get offended. I mean, honestly, airline distribution is kind of a dumpster fire right now. It's a dumpster fire of different standards. It's a dumpster fire of different tech stacks. It's a dumpster fire of all these things. But through it all, it still works because there's this legacy GDS glue that kind of holds it all together.
Okay. But it's a dumpster fire because of that. There's tech debt. There's multiple connections everywhere.
There's multiple connections everywhere. Yeah.
The original, if we take even rewinding right back to the original problem being solved, was huge fragmentation. So let's create something that manages that, takes away the complexity, so you can book electronically. And then, as you described, a few decades later, we've got another major initiative, NDC, to standardize the way so that the passenger that doesn't see any of this is all invisible infrastructure. This is if you go on a travel agent website, if you go direct to an airline, you book a ticket is a ticket, and it works its way through the system, and you go and check in, and it's all there. So the original problem being solved, it was the right problem. It was a good problem to solve. It helps the industry grow and becomes more standardized than it was. But it's what we're saying is we've reached a point where everyone's got a standard. Airlines have probably got lots and lots of technology. They maybe have all the different stacks.
Yep, they do.
They can connect to all of them.
They can connect to all of them.
Right. And so maintaining all of that, supporting the next standard, sounds like a bit of a tech infrastructure nightmare, to be honest.
It is.
Of complexity.
If you put yourself in the shoes of an airline of a travel agency, let's say a travel agency, you've got this connection to a GDS. I have access to 600 airlines, 600 to 900 airlines in one place. Everything is standard. I can check availability. I can book. I can ticket. I can do refunds. And I've got built processes around it, and the world's kind of harmonious, and I can do those kinds of things. And now I have a new standard. NDC. And NDC is a richer message. It shows me a little bit more about the airline, but I still have to book, but differently. I still have to, service that transaction, but NDC isn't quite ready to handle like refunds effectively. NDC doesn't handle like interlining well, depending on what version you're on. It doesn't. If you're if you have an interline agreement between, let's say, American Airlines and British Airways, you don't see it because the interlining doesn't quite work right in the versions that they're on, for example. So as a travel agent, like I have to continue to support the legacy, the GDS, and now I have to spend more money to support the new standard NDC, and NDC doesn't do quite everything yet that the legacy GDS does. So now I'm going to have to put more processes and more bodies and more people to compensate for what NDC doesn't do. So it's like the worst. It's kind of in the worst place to be. It's like all this great technology is adding more work to me. It's not taking work off. It's not making things more efficient. Although I think that's about to change, because I think that's where AI can kind of come in and sit as a layer on top of all of these different standards, interpret them, and make it much easier. So I do think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's a distant light, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel that
Okay.
that I know we'll get to. We'll get to in this conversation.
Or maybe we could lean into that, into what that light could be. Is it a train coming down the tunnel, or is it actually a light at the end of the tunnel?
I don't know. I think I think what we're at a point right now where we're moving from humans. So think about human travel agents. We're moving from that. The new travel agent in the world aren't people. They're software. They're AI bots acting on behalf of travelers and companies. They do the same things people do. They shop, they compare, they book, and they rebook around the clock. And here's the thing about bots compared to humans. A human asks a few questions, makes a booking, and stops. A bot never stops. It keeps checking, it keeps comparing, it keeps looking for better options. And if you multiply that by billions, and now a supplier system, an airline system, starts getting hit by a wall of machine demand that they've never seen before. And that drives up costs. So I think that's the potential train heading at you down that tunnel. But I think the industry will adapt, and it will do what it does when things get messy. Somebody's going to have to come in and build a new buffer, a buffer layer, not like the old GDS, but something new, kind of I don't know, modern machine to machine control layer that kind of handles authentication, traffic, governance, content normalization, trust, and handle that trust from machine to machine, the trust from bot to airline. I do think that's going to be. It's not. Again, it's not the old GDS. It's not a system that. It's more of a. I know. I kind of call it like a governor, like a doorman, who will help mediate and orchestrate traffic. I think that's going to be what's needed to make this work, because I can't imagine. I view any airline. Listen, the main goal of every airline is to transport people from point A to point B safely. That's their job. That's their core job. That's what they do really, really well, or at least they should be. I contend that airlines themselves are not retailers. They are not Amazon. they don't. They're not building e-commerce platforms the way Amazon is to handle traffic, to handle peak, sudden spikes in demand. They're not managing cloud infrastructure to adapt to those kinds of things around promotion. It's just not what they do, and it's so far away from what their core business is. I don't expect them to. I really hope that they partner with someone who can help provide that retailing platform to help manage it for them. And I
Right,
think for those intermediaries to succeed, there's going to have to be this AI governance layer that kind of helps guide bot traffic, because it's going to overwhelm people,
Well, I do. Well, let's I understand. So let's take a step back. I think the original we've gone through the original problem that the GDS solved. Something you mentioned around trust, sort of part the way through that answer, I think it's really interesting. I just want to dwell on that for a minute. Yeah. I think the role the GDS played was one half of a coin. The role that IATA plays on the other side of that coin, in terms of trust, particularly around its role, it may be that the listeners and viewers, some of them will know this, of course, but the actual crucial role that IATA plays, the trade association for the airlines, is that when it comes to money, a traveler paying money for a ticket to an airline they've never traveled on before, they don't know anything really about that airline. They don't know is it a real airline? Will they actually give me a ticket? If I show up at the airport, will it actually happen? Particularly traveling to a country you've never been before. So you can imagine everyone takes international travel and that level of trust in the system got for granted now. I know that if I fly to Geneva, or if I have an overnight somewhere and then a multi-leg travel somewhere else, I'm 99.999 or 100% sure that airline's going to be there, that ticket will work, a multi-leg, and even if it's a different airline operating the flight that I'd have bought the ticket from, I trust it. That's going to work.
Yeah.
So that level of go ahead.
I'll add real quick, because IATA does two really good things. You said the first half of it, which is absolutely true. For me as a traveler, IATA helps ensure that there's trust that you're going to get there on these airlines you don't know. But IATA also helps extend trust to the airline that the agency who is acting on the behalf of that traveler is legitimate, that they're certified by IATA, that they're bonded in some way, and that this agency is not going to just take the money from the airline and from the traveler and disappear tomorrow. So IATA plays a really critical role in the middle there, ensuring two layers of trust for the traveler and then trust for the airline.
Exactly. And without those two things, you don't have a functioning international aviation system, because the money doesn't flow, because you can't trust for both sides. Is it a real travel agent? Is it a real airline? Once people have that trust, take it for granted now, without that invisible infrastructure in place, nothing would happen. So now the second part of your fascinating answer a moment ago leans into, okay, if we've got AI agents acting on behalf of people, if we've got OTAs, online travel agents, with their own AI agent products, we've got big tech with chatbots with built-in connectors, we've got lots of combinations of all these different things. And you rightly called out that this layer of trust, negotiation, how do you know that AI agent is acting on behalf of a real passenger? how do you know if they're going to show up? And then the reverse of that, how does the AI agent know it's securing a real booking?
Yeah. I mean, exactly. It's again, it's that, who plays the electronic IATA in the middle to ensure the trust on both sides, and
Exactly.
and doing it at a scale. Think about it, doing this at a scale that no one's ever seen before. So it's one thing 100 years ago when agents would go ticket office to ticket office. It's another thing going to a GDS, hundreds or thousands of travel agencies going to a GDS and that electronically being spread out. Now potentially you could have billions of bots going out, hitting airlines, hitting sites. I mean, the big metric that in travel distribution as a whole, airline distribution as well, is look to book. How many
Right.
looks to you actually generate a booking? And I think corporate bookings are really good. I mean, it's like, it depends who you talk to. It could be 20 to 1. It could be whatever, because people have intent and they know they're booking for a business trip. Consumer travel is a little bit different. People shop. It could be 500 to 1, 400 to 500 to 1. Sometimes a little higher. What happens when every travel company, every big AI search engine, every person at their desktop sends out bots? You're going to have billions of bots constantly hitting the system, and yeah, it's going to be it's something we're going to have to contend with. I'm not saying it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's going to be growing pains. What kind of infrastructure does an airline need to have to handle, 1,000,000 to 1 booking look to book ratio?
Right.
You know,
All right.
what are the cloud costs for that?
I see. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
how do I know that the bot that's coming to me represents legitimate intent to buy versus a bad actor bot who's maybe just going there to scrape information from me and pass it on to my competitor?
Yeah.
It's it Who ensures that level of trust, that AI trust? Um,
Well, no one right now is definitely something that's missing, because
mhm,
I think, and people may not be aware of the level of competitor monitoring. I mean, the airline industry is competitive, and keeping track of ticket prices. What are those ticket prices doing over time? What's your revenue management strategy? How are you dealing with all of those things? And so
mhm.
you brought up a really good example there. How would you know that AI agent is a legit passenger
Right.
looking
Yeah.
and doing a search,
It's
or
yeah,
your competition just scraping all of your pricing so they can
yeah,
try and undercut you?
exactly. Yeah. It's knowing that that bot has legitimate intent is the word I would say. You know, are they really looking with the intent to book? And that's what they want. That's what every airline wants. I want to, I have a good product. If you have an intent to buy, I think my product's good enough that you're going to buy from me. Um, but now if I have to, you know, gear up for a million erroneous requests hitting me simultaneously, it's going to cost me money, and now I'm going to have to pass that cost on to everybody. You know, that infrastructure cost becomes huge. Um, they don't like paying. Airlines don't like paying the GDS what they pay for distribution. This
Yeah.
could get even expensive. But I do think in the end, AI is going to be a good thing. AI can normalize all the standards that I think I think it's difficult. It's hard to get two or three people or two people to agree to a standard sometimes. Can you imagine in an industry with 900 airlines? How do you get 900 airlines to agree to a standard? And then 900 airlines to agree to make the investment to switch to that standard, and 900 airlines to say, oh, by the way, our legacy tech stack doesn't really support this, so we're going to have to spend millions of dollars in years to update the tech stacks, to update the personalization engine, to update the revenue management system, to update the underlying PSS. It's staggering,
Mhm.
at a time right now where airlines around the globe are probably running on about 3.5 to 4% margin on airfare sales. I mean, it's like a,
Yeah.
I think I think Willie Walsh, when he was the head of IATA, said it's like it's like the cost of airlines make about as much as a fancy cup of coffee when they sell an airline ticket. That's about how much they make.
That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
So, okay, coming back to AI and trust, and maybe if you don't mind sharing, when you book your own travel
Mhm.
and you think about some of the products and the tools that you've used over the years, like would you trust an AI agent to search out a package, a flight, hotel, and car for you yet, or do you see that being a little way away?
That's a good one. I mean, I would, even just on regular traditional like online booking tools, and I am in, for the record, I am in the online booking tool business, by the way. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
I will say I would always use those tools, um, in a way that would, you know, give me the most flexibility. Show me all the options, let me pick. Um, I think my mindset is starting to change where I think now that we have AI that kind of knows my preferencing a little bit better, I think I'm getting to a point where I'm going to be more trusting in AI to make those selections. If I'm going to be honest, I mean, um, I think I shared with you before the call. I've kind of built this great information management system for my own life, and it does everything in the context of who I am, on my family, on where I work, what I do for a living, what my skills are, what my preferences are. Um, an, A, an AI isn't fully doing all this, but if an AI knows that much about me, I'm starting to feel like it could probably it can probably pick me the flight and probably the hotel if I give it enough context.
Yeah, I mean, the way you described it just before we got on the
Hmm.
recording,
Yeah.
you've set up it's a pretty advanced system you've got going on. You have enough context there
Yeah.
with your preferences loaded.
Yeah.
You're using a combination of AI and Obsidian, which I've
Yeah.
heard a lot of
Yeah.
people using that for
Yeah.
sort of home file management in terms of context that pairs very well with AI.
Yeah.
Um, so that's that. In that scenario, you have a home personal assistant, a Jarvis,
Yeah. And
to make a
that's how
booking for you.
and that's how it feels to me too. It feels like a Jarvis. I can throw anything. There are times I'll just take my phone and take a picture of a bill, let's say like a medical invoice, for example, and I'll take a picture of it, and it will just pop in my folder, in my cloud folder, and AI will go in it, and it'll read it, and it'll say, "Oh, this is a medical bill. This is for Jim Hetzel. This is where it needs to be filed." And I've actually started playing with it to build, building in new skills where it'll actually look at the bill and look at how it's built and how it's charted, and flag it if there's something that looks off on the billing.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, it's really
nice.
cool. It's really cool. Now, got to get back in travel. We got to get back in travel here, but
Yeah.
yeah, think about that. You know, I see lots of opportunities for AI to do some really cool things. I'll share some. In my career, I've had some really some really cool projects that I've worked on. A lot of them didn't see the light of day. But I was once on a project years ago where we built a booking engine that sat on top of 3 major GDS systems at the time, and they'd
Cool.
all search, for the exact same itinerary. And you would think they should come back with all the same result. They're all global distribution systems. They're all connected to the airlines, the same airlines. They should come back with the same pricing. Nope.
Oh,
Doesn't do it.
okay. I
Doesn't
thought I
do it.
understood I thought I understood things halfway through this podcast.
I
But
know.
now I'm lost again.
Well, here's what we found was, I mean, and it's funny, you don't know these things until you actually you start looking under the hood, and you look at it and you find out that, well, this GDS calculates taxes in a slightly different way, and this GDS doesn't, and now you're seeing $5, $10, $100, $200 differences in airfares, especially on international. Domestic airfares are probably not have little variances, $1 here, $2 there, but international things can be huge the way they're calculated. And the funny thing is, you could issue a ticket on any of those options and they'd be just fine. There'd be no debit memos, no pushback from the agencies, none of that. And they would just work. And yeah, it's kind of mind blowing to know that, that there could be these kinds of differences, and it all varied.
But why do you think that? Why do you think that is? Why was that? Why did that happen?
I think the industry there's so much complexity in the industry. There's everything. I think even in the airlines, there's a buffer, a level of tolerance of variability. There's variability in everything. And as long as it's within, let's say, 5%, or let's say 2 or 3%, let's say, as long as it's within 2 or 3%, it's going to be more costly than for me to audit that and try to force everyone to get into it. That's my theory. That's my theory from experience. Is that there's, if you're in that window, you're okay.
So there's something about the complexity of the business. We talked about standards earlier on. Mm-hmm. There's so many standards. It's a complex industry. Mm-hmm. So that is causing revenue leakage just by its nature.
Of course. Yeah. I used to know in my, and prior to me getting into technology and working with booking tools and distribution tools and so forth, I used to work. I started my career in a in a corporate travel agency, and I got to work with some really fantastic people. And I found one of the arts in a travel agency is the international pricing specialist, or the person. There are people who literally specialized in international faring, and it actually was an art. It was actually an art. There were people who understood how international fares were calculated, that there could be different ways of calculating a fare, where to break the fare in different points, and they could literally save thousands of dollars on a ticket just because they were skilled at it in a ways that computers could never. The GDS itself, the GDS pricing engine, could never do those kinds of things. But there was an art to it. I suspect in this day and age, I mean, I certainly think the GDS has got a little bit better. I still think there's an art to it. And I would hope that over time, AI will probably end up picking up that art form of being able to just exhaustively look at every possible way to calculate a fare and make sure it's as cheap as possible. But guess what? I still think there's imprecision. I still think there's imprecision, and I still think there's no single truth out there, to be quite honest.
And so part of the issue then is there is 50 years worth of tech debt that AI has to tackle and fix alongside, at the same time as consumer AI agents requesting every combination of possible travel options, all changing at the same time.
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of moving parts here. I think it's a really exciting time in travel. I think, who's going to be the next GDS? And I use the term GDS loosely. I don't know if Amadeus or Sabre, one or somebody else is going to be that trust layer, that orchestration layer. It could be somebody completely new. But I do think it's exciting, and some people think, I don't know. Some people think that AI will kind of cut out all the intermediaries in the middle, because it'll allow people to go direct. And I don't agree with that. I think AI doesn't kill intermediaries. It kills the weak ones, absolutely.
Okay.
but
yeah.
but the players who kind of who hang on will be the ones who solve all the real problems, the trust problems, the orchestration problems. They're the ones that are going to adapt, and they're the ones that are going to be successful. But yeah, AI itself doesn't. I'm not fearful of AI.
I think. I mean, that's a lovely point to sort of draw a line under that discussion, because I think what you've revealed to me is that even with the cost of software development coming down massively, so there's massive deflationary pressure in terms of building tools, building software, and building these systems. Even if that all happens, and we assume it all will, you'll have your Jarvis at home ready to pick the perfect combination, custom package holiday at the best possible price it can get for you. But what hasn't been solved yet is if I take it all the way back to the formation of IATA, sorting out the money trust issue between the traveler and the agent and the airline, not knowing each other or having dealt with before, creating that level of trust so that you're not going to lose your money. It's a real agent, it's a real airline. From an airline's perspective, that's a real traveler. They're buying a ticket and the settlement around the money side. So that piece, I've not heard anything from anyone about that role in the new AI world.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, I'm absolutely being kind of future looking, but I absolutely see a need for that. I mean, you're a tech guy. I mean, can you imagine billions of bots out there? Never sleep, always going. Some bots will be smarter than other bots. I'm not going to be going to, think about like a less intelligent bot. Well, if there's such a thing, going to a Japanese airline looking for domestic U.S. airfares because it's just looking at airlines. I mean, I'm hoping most of them are going to be smarter than that, and they're going to say like, okay, somebody wants to travel from. I live in Detroit, so from Detroit to LA, I'm going to focus only on airlines that operate flights from Detroit to LA, and I'm not going to go to other airlines that don't. But there'll be bots out there that won't know any better, and they're just going to hit the machine. And I mean, even looking at logs in my own system, I see strange activity where I'm seeing searches being done that really shouldn't be, that maybe my airline customer doesn't even service, would never even service, completely outside of their region, for example. And I see that in the logs. Is that a bot? I don't know yet. I can't tell yet. I'm sure I will be at some point. I'll be able to pick out those, what's a bot? what's a scraper, sometimes the bots are the scrapers, so.
Yeah.
But we can see it's really, really interesting. But I do think the industry will need some level of governance and trust authentication and orchestration to make it work seamlessly, because it's the right thing for consumers, for the travelers and the travel sellers, and it's the right thing for the airlines. Because I don't think anyone sees the storm that's brewing on the horizon if you don't fix that. AI will make life a lot easier. In many ways, it'll make it more difficult in other ways. But I'm confident the industry will step up. It will.
Well, that's a great note to end the discussion. But before we close out the recording, Jim, tell us a little bit about TWAI and how can people reach you, and are you at some events coming up, and love to learn a little bit about what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure. So I'll tell you a little bit. So TWAI is all about modern travel, airline and travel retailing. So, I've talked about, everybody wants to be the next Amazon for travel. Some people think that they have to go to NDC. Some people, can't afford to do that. The reality is at TWAI, we work we work with NDC, we work with legacy GDSs, we work with non-air content providers, hotel bed banks, direct car rental companies, tours and activities. And we provide that to airlines and travel sellers and loyalty companies. We provide a platform that allows them to retail everything in travel. We're agnostic to standards. And I think that's a pretty cool place to be. It's kind of like, it's kind of like everyone says they want to be retailers. The reality is they could be retailers today. It doesn't require the latest NDC. It doesn't require the latest AI. We can do that for you today. And so that's what we do at TWAI. And you can always reach out to us at our website at twai.com. People can find me on LinkedIn. But we'd love to talk about how we can really transform retailing for airlines and travel sellers. And I think we have a lot to offer in terms of content and managing that content for them. So.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Listen, Jim, thank you so much for coming on the Travel Tech podcast. This has been really fun. And I think I've finally got my head around the differences between some of these things.
Well, if I helped you get it, I still have to get my head around all of it, because it's a 50-year-old industry, and it's still mind-numbing sometimes. I think if you talk to anybody in travel, they'll say something kind of similar in distribution side. I mean, but no, it's not boring. It's not boring.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
You got it. You take care.